Hello and welcome to the Dr. Rich Show. I am Johnny Jackson. We have a great show today. We're going to talk with a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Colonel E.J. Otero, and then we're going to cover tomorrow's news today as political expert and veteran broadcaster Greg Allen and I bring you the latest news before it breaks. But first, this November, we can vote for a change. We can throw Barack Obama out of the White House. We can get Bill Nelson, that liberal Bill Nelson, out of the Senate, and we can elect local candidates that are true conservatives. We have the power, you and I, to stand up and take this country back and set it on the path of morality, liberty, and prosperity. Now, I'm Johnny Jackson, and it all starts today right here, right now on the Dr. Rich Show. We are very pleased to have with us as our guest today Colonel E.J. Otero. Colonel E.J. Otero, Jr., Air Force retired, is currently an independent political military commentator and intelligence contractor. Colonel Otero retired after 28 years of service, of which 22 were in active duty. He spent 14 years working out of MacDill Air Force Base, first at U.S. Central Command and later at U.S. Special Operations Command. That's in Tampa, Florida. Recently, at U.S. Special Operations Command from 2006 to 2010, he was in charge of international engagement dedicated to developing agreements with equivalent special operations commands around the world in support of U.S. military efforts worldwide. In this capacity, Colonel Otero took the lead in negotiating partnerships with 5 key U.S. partners: Poland, France, Great Britain, Colombia, and Jordan. He is credited with being the founding architect of a strategic special operation force at the U.S. Special Operations Command. Colonel Otero, welcome to the Dr. Rich Show.
Oh, thank you. It is a pleasure and an honor.
And we are honored to have you. Now, you spent over 28 years in the military, and we want to thank you for your service, first of all.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Congress.
Well, there is what I did for 28 years, I was committed to my country. It was a privilege to serve my fellow citizens and to serve this great nation of ours. But what happened in the past 3 years, I have felt that from the White House and from the White House lieutenants such as Congresswoman Kathy Castor in Tampa, there has been almost a facilitation to turn this country into more of a leftist republic, socialist republic than what it should be. It needs to be the beacon of democracy. It needs to be the beacon of freedom. It needs to be the beacon of fairness and what is good in all humans in the world. And that's what we have fought for so long, for over 200 years. That's what we have done. And then when I retired from the military after my frustration with this almost anti-American actions from the government, I see that the economy on the outside, it's falling apart. The economy is on fire. Nothing on fire in a negative way, on fire in the sense that it's been destroyed. So I decided that I was going to use the tools and the abilities that I have learned serving my country and the values that I have natural to my way of being to put it at the service of my country once again out of Congress.
Well, E.J., where did you grow up? I mean, where are you from?
Well, my father is from Cuba. My mother is from Puerto Rico. I grew up in Puerto Rico. I left Puerto Rico when I was 17 years old, and I went to Iowa State University. That's where I did my college work. And I graduated from ROTC in 1982, and I was in the military at the time. I got in the military. So I grew up in Puerto Rico, lived in Iowa, and then all over the world.
And you received a political science and journalism double major from Iowa State University, is that right?
Correct.
Wow, so you know a little bit about political science and doing radio shows. Is that in your family, actually?
Well, yes, it is. My father was the third voice, the third broadcast voice in Latin America. He was the first one in Puerto Rico. When the Puerto Rico TV opened up, he was the first voice that came out, and he founded TV news in Puerto Rico, even though he had been doing radio for a number of years before that. And my mother was a high school teacher who decided that she was going to get in TV, and she actually was the first female TV director in Puerto Rico and one of the first in Latin America. And then she went on to get her PhD in mass communications from NYU. So I watch from afar, but I don't even have close to the talents that they had. So I did other things.
We here at the Dr. Rich Show fully endorse and support your work and your efforts in running for Congress. And, you mentioned that right now the country seems to be going towards a liberal slant, almost to a socialist degree. Where did you get your Republican ideas, your conservative ideas from?
Well, that's interesting. My father and my mother. And my father, he got from Cuba to Puerto Rico in 1948, and his values were always very conservative and always very leaning to what the Republican Party is all about. My father always says, you need to work hard. You need to do something for your fellow citizens. Don't expect handouts from anybody. Anything that you do in life is because you earned it, and it is more sweet if you earn it. And education is key. Whatever level of education that you achieve, make sure that you do the best you can. And then my mother, she followed the same principles, and she was actually one of the founders of the Republican Party in Puerto Rico. And so I grew up in that environment. I was one of the few kids in the 1960s that I screamed and yelled how wonderful my country was, what a privilege it is to be an American. And that was in the middle of the Vietnam era. I was a 10-year-old running around singing the praises of the United States, and people would ask me, and I would say, I wish I was in Vietnam with my fellow Americans, serving with them. I grew up in that type of environment, and it made me who I am today, and that's why I believe that the Republican Party has been consistently for the past several decades the beacon of the right and beacon to doing the right thing in our country. It does not compromise key values. It does not compromise the constitutional values of what we're all about.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. Now, you went into the military. Did you take those same values into the military when you went in?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Unquestionable. The military is one of those things that I always view as I adapt to the military. The military doesn't need to adapt to me. When you have changes like we have had in the past 3 or 4 years, in which the military structure is softened by the military adapting itself to the one specific soldier or the one specific sailor, marine, or airman, you got a problem. It needs to be a sturdy, solid piece, is the key piece for the defense of this country. And anybody that goes in it needs to understand that you adapt to it. And the values that go with it, that when you put on that uniform, you represent anything that is good for America. It is a privilege. It is an honor, and it should be carried as a badge of courage. And anybody that has worn the uniform belongs, I believe, to two groups of nobility. This country has two nobilities. We don't have kings and queens, but we certainly have the senior citizens and all those millions of people that have worn the uniform in the past. So I did bring those values into the military, and I expected the best from the people that work for me. I expected the best of myself when it came to coming up with solutions and working hard and doing the best I could do educationally to serve my country.
Well, one of the defining moments of our country is September 11th, 2001, and I know that there was a lot of very strong national sentiments right after 2001. EJ, where were you during 9/11?
I was at Central Command. I was in the belly of the beast. I was a Deputy Operations Intelligence Chief, and on 9/11, I went to work in the morning at Central Command in Tampa. And in the morning, we were setting up a visit in the command. I had a team of 4, and by the end of the day, all that has changed. I didn't leave the command for about a week, and by 12 o'clock in the afternoon, General Franks had ordered everybody to pull out plans, and we were at war. We were supposed to prepare the plans for submissions and options to the President and to the Secretary of Defense. The whole world turned around. Nothing was the same. And I couldn't have been more proud of that. Those were the toughest years intellectually, physically, in my life. Because it is not only, you can deal with the mental strain and you can deal with the physical strain and then deploying forward and so on. Well, but what is the toughest thing? The gasoline that keeps you going is that you're doing it for your country, and that you're doing it to preserve what we're all about, and not allow any of this if I can use the word scumbags, do the kind of things that they did on September 11th to the United States. That is not an option.
Now, we're talking with retired Air Force Colonel E.J. Otero, and he's a candidate for Congress in Florida's 11th District. E.J., tell us a little bit about the 11th District and why you want to run for Congress in that district.
Well, the 11th District is the bulk of it is in Tampa. It does kisses on St. Pete. The district is a highly varied district. It's not homogeneous in any way, shape, or form. It has several demographics represented. He has a strong Hispanic. He has a strong African American. He has a strong everything. And I don't think that none of those groups have been represented favorably. Right now, if anything, the only groups that are represented are perhaps a special interest. They're the big donors of the incumbent. But the economy of the area, it's going down. MacDill is losing 2,500 jobs. They have lost 2,500 jobs in the middle of a war, and these are not jobs that you can just do away fairly readily. These are fairly key jobs. The port facility, it's dead. Anybody that has driven around Tampa will see that the port is not even close to the level that it could be. And the research facilities in Tampa, we have such a wonderful university, University of South Florida. We have such a wonderful capability to develop research and create jobs and so on. And none of that has been touched. When I looked at what the Congresswoman Castor has done, it's pretty much paying lip service, and it's somebody else's job, somebody else's lead, somebody else is doing something, and she hasn't really led anything. And what we're doing is we're going to change that. We're going to provide the leadership. We're going to work hand in hand with the academics, with the business community on how to do this properly. And we're going to bring ideas, and we're going to put them on the table, and we're going to roll up our sleeves and work hard at it. And that Tampa hasn't had in a long time. That is the reason why the economy in Tampa is going downhill. The only thing that she has been very effective about is signing up to every possible program that Barack Hussein Obama has proposed. Everything that he's put on the table, she has approved. I think that's irresponsible. We need a citizen in Congress that, one, it is committed to the country, it is committed to doing the right thing, has the ideas, does not consider it a birthright to be in Congress. It is a privilege, and most importantly, that is committed to term limits and congressional reform and put things on the table from the first day, not later, but from the first day. Tell the people in the United States, I will be here this amount of time. I will not enrich myself. I will not take advantage of this wonderful position of trust that you have given me. Because it's very easy to say, I'm going to vote for Obamacare and the 2,000 pages that go with it, and I know that it's bad for all of you, but I'm going to exempt myself. And it is also very easy to raise the salaries, self-raise the salaries in Congress every 2 years, and I think that's immoral when they haven't done anything. And I pledge to not do that in any way, shape, or form. And I would be out of there on their term limits.
Well, EJ, the legislative session started a little earlier this year on January 10th due to redistricting. Has the 11th district been redistricted? It's
been worked on. Absolutely, it will be redistricted. My thing is that I am not following there are folks that do pay really close attention to that, and they make decisions based on that, whether they're gonna make their moves based on the redistricting. I personally don't follow that. It's not of my interest. I think the problem that we have is one of message and one of getting things done, and whether there is a majority of this and a minority of that, it's irrelevant to me. The people are affected, whether they're 6 of one, half a dozen or the other. So I'm committed. I'm committed to the race. I want to do it for the people of Tampa. We'll see how it all sorts out, and of course I hope that the folks in the area that are friends throughout the state will help us out, take the message through, and win it.
Now, you've signed a pledge to protect taxpayers from the tax and spend habits of Congress. What does that entail?
Well, what that entails is that I committed, I put my name to a document that says that I commit to not raise taxes. Any item that goes for concurrence of congressional concurrence that raises taxes, I will vote against that. It is not an option. Raising taxes is not an option. We have to lower taxes. We have to control our spending, and we are committed to that. And some people will tell you, well, yes, that's what I'm going to do, but they don't follow their pledge. or they don't pledge at all.
Yeah, they don't pledge, much like President Obama's recent budget. What do you think about the president's budget right now?
It's totally irresponsible. We can go into the rabbit holes on what each key piece of the budget is, and we could talk days on end because it is so ridiculous. But the basic number that I want everybody to understand is that in his budget, he's asking for another $1 trillion. Mm-hmm. Another $1 trillion that we don't have. Imagine if in the household, if the family got together and they decided, honey, I think in my $30,000 salary a year, I want to go and buy a Ferrari because it is a better car and it's a faster car. You can't do that. You cannot do that. You got to live within your means. There's a lot of other wonderful cars out there that the family can go ahead and buy. The same thing with the country. You cannot submit a $1 trillion budget and put it on the backs of the Americans when he doesn't have the know-how or he doesn't have the mechanism to raise that money. And it's not going to be out of taxes because we already have $15 trillion in debt. And another $1 trillion is going to put us in $16 trillion. They can get all the money of every American for the next 3 years, nobody making any money, and they still not going to pay that. It requires new ideas. It requires going out to other countries and bring money into the United States. It requires, guess what? Free market ideas, not nanny state thought, socialistic thoughts like the President of the United States has on the table. $1 trillion, by the time it's all said and done, the dollar is not going to worth anything. So what is the point? I think he's missing it. I think he's irresponsible. I think Ms. Kathy Castro in Florida supporting all his moves and all his proposal is also irresponsible, and we need to do something about it. They need to go.
Is Kathy Castro running in the 11th District again?
Yes, she is.
Most likely you will be facing her again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. I know she debates me.
One group that endorsed you as their candidate is Combat Veterans for Congress. What can you tell us about Combat Veterans for Congress?
Combat Veterans for Congress is an organization that they don't favor specific parties, but what they do favor is the key element, the key requirement that you got to be a combat veteran, that you have to believe in conservative principles, and that you support the Constitution. If you're a Democrat, or Republican, or Independent, so be it. But those are the key factors. And surprise, surprise, most of the folks that are endorsed, which is over 30 candidates around the country, they actually have a website, Combat Veterans for Congress. Those folks, most of them are Republicans. Go figure, defenders of Constitution and democracy. And that's what they do. They actually were the first organization that endorsed Alan West, that endorsed Congressman Micah, and others. So I'm very proud for their endorsement. They were going to have their national convention in Tampa in March. They had to change it to May, but I am really looking forward to attending that conference. Great people.
Well, Joseph R. John, one of the members there at Combat Veterans for Congress, he said, "We have endorsed another combat veteran for Congress that General George Washington would have approved of. He's a veteran who at one point in his life wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including his life." We're going to go into a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more with Colonel E.J. Otero, candidate for the United States House of Representatives. This is the Dr. Rich Show.
Hello, I'm Glenn Pav, President and CEO of the Conservative Talk Network and the Dr. Rich Show. I've coined the phrase righting the right to encourage us to move our country back to the right of center on the political and moral spectrum, the very place our founding fathers lived. Each letter, R-I-G-H-T, explains our stance. The R stands for Reformation. The Protestant Reformation of the 16th century began as a movement of individuals, both laymen and clergy, whose faith and witness inspired thousands to restore sound biblical Christianity to the people of all nations, based upon the truth of the gospel according to God's holy word. Today, the gift of this godly heritage is being challenged by many factors and may not survive intact beyond this generation. Today, we need a spiritual revival of the soul and a political reformation of the mind. I'm Glenn Pav of the Conservative Talk Network. With Reformation, let's keep righting the right.
Is it just me, or do you agree? It seems like everyone's suffering financially. Even the U.S. government is having problems with its credit. It's just a mess out there. How about you? Are you having financial trouble like over 65 million Americans at this time? Having a low credit score can affect you in so many ways, from employment opportunities to purchasing or refinancing a home to buying a new car or even just opening a bank account. If you're thinking about restoring your credit, that's a smart thing to do. But be careful. Before you do anything, call the Center for Sound Consumer Advice Incorporated. Still the only consumer advocacy referral service in America where since 2004 there has never been a fee of any kind to consumers. Call toll-free today, 800-819-6543, and get your free guide to credit restoration. Learn what you need to know before you do anything. So call today, 800-819-6543 for your free guide to credit restoration. Gain knowledge, become aware, and help yourself and your family recover financially. That's 800-819-6543, 800-819-6543.
And we're back on the Dr. Rich Show. I'm Johnny Jackson, and you are listening to NPC Radio. That's not politically correct radio on WWPR AM 1490, the conservative talk network from Bradenton to St. Pete, Tampa to Sarasota. We are telling the truth, and we're exposing the liberals and the Republicans who act like them. Now at the Dr. Rich Show, we highlight ordinary people doing extraordinary things like our guest today, candidate for U.S. House of Representatives in Florida's 11th District, Colonel E.J. Otero. E.J., welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, we talked a little bit about the economy, but I know that's one of your feature issues. And tell us your real plans for the 11th District there and the economy.
Well, the economy in Tampa is based on jobs. Everything is closing up. Foreclosures is a direct relation of no money in the area. People are not buying houses. People are leaving. People got over their heads with the Barney Frank irresponsible moves in Congress trying to give houses to people that could not afford it, and so on. There were a lot of reasons why the foreclosure market has gotten the way it has been. As far as the jobs in Tampa, there is no job creation. There is no new ideas. Everything is pretty much stagnant. It's a lovely city. But there is really nothing going on as far as that universe. There is no fast market of vehicles, of buildings, of commercial property, et cetera, like it used to be. So I think that there's three key elements for the development of the economy in Tampa. Number one, the port facility. The port facility needs to be supported. And how? Not just by platitudes. We need to use the free trade agreements that we have right now in place with Panama, Colombia, Chile, and we need to use the powerful economic strength that Brazil has right now and bring them to Tampa. Offer them the wonderful things that we have in Florida and its general areas. We need to do that. They have shown interest in coming to the United States and spend money here, spend dollars here, and for some reason we have not paid attention to them. What has happened is that we have followed a policy of east to west and west to east. We have been following the nanny state. We have become the welfare state of the world. We have been looking at Europe. They're in trouble, so we're going to go over there and help them out. With what money? I don't know. So we go ahead in China and we ask China for money. We misuse it, we misspend it, and then we give the rest that we can to Europe to help them get themselves set straight. In the process, President Obama, when he is in Disney World, he tells the Brazilians, "Hey, Brazilians, come and tour Disney. Come and and spend vacations in Disney." That is almost offensive. What we need to be doing is going to Latin America and looking at their manufacturing requirements. What kind of equipment do you need? The Colombians are looking at oil drilling equipment. They're looking at hydroelectrical plants. They're looking at mental power, folks that with the education, engineers, etc., to go and help them develop projects down there. That's money that is going to be put in Americans' pockets. They're going to come back to the United States and spend it. That's when they buy the oil drills and the electrical plants, they buy them from the United States, from all over the United States, and they're all shipped out of Tampa. Constant shipment when we cut those contracts. Constant shipment over there. The same thing with Chile. Chile wants to utilize the Pacific coast of Colombia to transport things into the United States from the Pacific through Colombia and up to the United States from the port of Cartagena. Unfortunately, I have spoken with folks in the government in Colombia who are friends of mine, and they tell me that when they have been talking to the White House and when they have been talking to President Obama's representatives, they don't pay attention to them. So there's individuals out there, and the same thing goes with the Brazilians. So there's individuals, there are folks out there that have a lot of money ready to spend, and we're not talking to them. And that is irresponsible. We need to go out, and that's where I will bring to the table the experience that I have in the international arena, negotiating agreements. I have already made friends with these countries. I don't need to be taught. I don't need to start shaking hands with those individuals starting anew. I land in the country. I know exactly who to go to. I know exactly how the embassies are organized, and I know exactly what is the structure of the host country, and cut deals and bring money to the United States right away. All that will be affecting positively the port facility. Around the port facility, one of the other things that I would like to develop is an international trade zone. We don't have one in Tampa. And anybody that is in business will tell me that they're flabbergasted by that. Is that Tampa is an international port, if you will, even though it's dead, and it does not have an international trade facility. I would like to support that, and the only way we can do that through Congress is by lowering taxes and by making it easier with partnerships to develop those trade zones. And of course, protecting the base, MacDill Air Force Base, which provides $3 billion into the economy, and enhancing the research facilities at USF in the city.
Well, you mentioned MacDill there. What is your foreign policy recommendations? Obviously, with the Republican nomination underway, the campaign there, Ron Paul has gotten some looks both ways from all kinds of different people as far as his foreign policy, where he says that everyone who isn't an isolationist is an interventionist. You want to have a strong military and defense. What are your thoughts on foreign policy?
Well, we cannot overextend ourselves. What we need to do is make a resolution that any time that we do anything for any other country in the world, there is a reciprocal reaction. There are times in which you go to war and the values and the ideals of our country are at stake, and you just do it. Like in Afghanistan, we got attacked, we went there, we did what we needed to do. In Kuwait in 1991, exactly the same thing. And in World War II, for that matter. But on there are other interventions like Libya. I still, to this day, I wonder what in the world we were doing in Libya, what the hell we were doing in Uganda, sending special forces troops. I have doubts on the thinking process in the White House. We need to be one of the most precious things that we have is the military, and the most precious currency that we have is our sons and daughters in uniform. The last person that wants to go to war is a military person because they know what they're going to see. So it needs to be a responsible view. There needs to be a certain degree of bringing back troops from around the world and pick and choosing where is it that we're going to be sending them. We have no business being in 199 places around the world. We really don't. Many of those areas, non-governmental organizations, private organizations can do much better than we can. And there's no reasons why you have military troops doing that. Foreign internal defense, which is the building of the wells, the building of the roads, and that sort of thing. Civil military operations, they used to be the venue of the special forces. Now you have infantry forces doing that, and we shouldn't be doing that. We are turning our soldiers into career fields that they are not trained to do. Not for the long haul, not for the long period.
Well, we are here talking with candidate for Congress in Florida's 11th District, retired Air Force Colonel E.J. Otero, and we're talking about foreign policy and our military and defense. One of the issues of the day is Iran and their attempt to gain nuclear weapons. They've been puffing up their chest here lately, saying they're going to destroy Israel. They might even come after the United States and the West. What are your thoughts on Iran?
Well, Iran is probably the biggest threat that we have right now in the Middle East. The capability, the nuclear capability that they have, not so much that it's a nuclear, that they're going to be a threat to us in a nuclear way, that they're going to destroy an American city, but that they're going to destroy our number one ally, and they're going to destroy the anchor of what is Judeo-Christian, and that is Israel. And they have been very clear. They have been threatening Israel for a number of years at the same time that they are developing nuclear capabilities. If you remember when you were a kid and playing with your friends, if there was a kid that was telling you, I'm going to hit you, and he's wanting that punch, you either run, you face him, or you talk him out of it. but you certainly do something about it. And we haven't done anything in support of Israel. What we have done is actually left them alone. We have not had the strength of character under Barack Hussein Obama to stand side by side with Israel and look at Iran and says, don't you dare do anything against Israel, because if you do with him, you're going to be dealing with me. And
you would favor that if you were in Congress?
Absolutely, absolutely. Without Israel, we lose. I would be unfair if I were not to tell you how I feel about it. Without Israel, the Middle East and the stability of the world cease to exist.
Well, you talked about Judeo-Christian values. What is your faith, and how do you believe faith has helped you in your career and the military as well as in public service?
I'm a strong Catholic. I'm a strong Christian. I have a man that I have faced my Savior many times in my past. In the 7 years ago to now, I became more of a devout Catholic and more of a respectful Christian that I have had in my life. I enjoy to be surrounded by Christian values. It has actually helped me. It has actually become a better man. It has been my solution to my troubles from the war. That has been my solution to my getting ahead in life. And God and Jesus, they actually blessed me with a wonderful woman that is going to be my bride in the next few months, and I'm very proud of that.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you so much. So Jesus and God, my faith have been everything to me. So I feel very strongly about it.
Well, speaking of that, what do you think about the attacks on religion coming out of this current administration?
Well, there has to be a counterattack. That is an intellectual attack that she put out. There is an operational and a tactical attack that the implementers under her have been putting out. And that has been going on for a very long time through Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood have been conducting contraception, and they have been conducting abortions for a very long time, referrals for abortion for a very long time, regardless of what the faith of the patient is, regardless of whether the government is giving them government dollars to do that, and it's illegal for them to do that, and they should not be doing those sort of things. Well, now Catherine Sebelius and the president, what they're doing is they're upping the ante. Now they're bringing a little bit higher. Now they're poking the American citizen in the chest a little bit more. They're poking you in the chest harder, saying, you know what? Now you're going to have to pay for it, regardless if you're a Christian or not, or whether you agreed with these views or not, or you're a Jew, or you're whatever religion you wish to be, but you don't support contraception. Now you're going to have to. How about that? What are you going to do? It's almost an affront. It's almost an affront to what we stand for. There has to be a counterattack, and the counterattack, it has to be a very intellectual and very well prepared and planned one, going back at them, in which Congress and the American citizens are not going to give in 1 inch. Congress needs to get resolute on it, and it needs to be. I don't expect there should not be one congressperson out there that would support something like this. And they cannot wait just for the bill to come through Congress for them to say something about it. All of them need to be on TV. All of them need to make statements in the media. They need to go out to their constituents. What a concept. They need to out to their constituents and talk about this and saying that this is wrong, regardless of party, Democrat or Republican. They need to do that. Many of them, they have sold their souls, and they don't want to upset the White House, so they will not go to their districts and discuss it. A congressman has that responsibility. If this goes against your values and your principles, bring it to your constituents, who you should also be representing their values and their principles.
Speaker John Boehner actually came out and rebuked the mandate from the Health and Human Services Department and Obamacare, of course. Would you be in support of legislation that would repeal Obamacare?
Totally. Completely, irrevocably. Yes, absolutely. Obamacare needs to go away. Obamacare is a monster. It's 2,000 pages, and nobody knew what they were voting for. Obamacare is a jumble of words, of legalese that not even the lawyers understand. Obamacare is killing the Medicare program. It took $500 million out of the Medicare program to put it on Obamacare. It is unconstitutional. It is forcing people to pay for something. First time in history that you have that you have a law that requires individuals to spend something for the government. It is a jumble of contradictions. It is irresponsible. It is wrong. So, yes, I would definitely vote to repeal it.
Well, another issue that you have on your website, which I should say, if you haven't been to the website of E.J. Otero, check it out. It's ejoteroforcongress.com. That's EJOTERO for Congress.com. But one of the issues there is congressional reform. What are your thoughts on congressional reform?
Well, I want to clean the cesspool in Congress. I know it's a tough task, but somebody got to start it. And I have no issue going to Congress and calling them out. If you folks really think that you are the servants of the people, how about if you join me and passing a law in which we have term limits? That way, you will not be subjugated to the controls of the special interest. You don't have to worry about your re-elections, two or three re-elections down the line. You can do what you need to do for the people. And how about if you stop raising your own salaries when you don't deserve it? And be clear, don't become rich in Congress. It is unfathomable to me the number of individuals that go to the Senate and to the Congress of the United States who go in with X amount of dollars and they're millionaires right now. There's a few exceptions. Ron Paul is an exception, to be fair, and Rand Paul. And there are others out there that in the past they have gone in and they have left either the same way that they came in or maybe a little bit better because of private investors, but certainly not millionaires. But when you have individuals like Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid who have been in Congress for years and years and years, and their personal values and their personal fortunes have gone up 300 and 400%, and the backs of the American people, that is immoral. I mean, also in the congressional reform, anything that is approved in Congress, I'm calling out my fellow congressmen. I will call them all out and tell them, listen, anything that you approve in here applies to you. You will not exempt yourself from nothing. You're an American citizen. And this nonsense about getting a retirement for the rest of their lives after serving 1-2 terms, it is ridiculous.
Well, I agree. Now, tell us how people can get involved in your campaign. Where are you going to be at in the coming days?
Well, they can get into my website, and they can also email me at campaign@ejoteroforcongress.com. That's a website. They can also go directly to the website, www.ejoteroforcongress.com, and in there you will see the buttons, and you can say, I want to participate. Or you can donate if you want, and we have the events and so on. You can click in there whatever you want, and it will get to us immediately, and we will take your name down. We will give you a personal call and get you involved in the campaign, and it would be truly a privilege to do that.
Well, thank you very much, EJ, for being on the Dr. Rich Show. We would like to have you back again before the election just to get your message out and make sure everything's going right for you.
I'll be delighted. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's retired Air Force Colonel E.J. Otero, a candidate for Congress in Florida's 11th District. We have to take a quick break. Coming up next, tomorrow's news today, including a strange twist on a new relationship between Pakistan and China, and a march to Tampa to honor our fallen Special Operations warriors. All that and more coming up next on the Dr. Rich Show.
Hello, I'm Glenn Pav, President and CEO of the Conservative Talk Network and the Dr. Rich Show. I've coined the phrase righting the right to encourage us to move our country back to the right of center on the political and moral spectrum, the very place our founding fathers lived. Each letter, R-I-G-H-T, explains our stance. The I stands for integrity. Political corruption, moral decay, patriotic disloyalty, and open dishonesty run rampant in our country today. The leftists, from the presidency to the media, unabashedly use harsh criticism based on lies to demean the character of the constitutional conservatives. Character assassination is the norm of the day. Overt acts of bribery and theft are left unpunished. Our president's sarcasm is disingenuous and unprecedented. This is intolerable, my friend. Integrity must rule the day, or trust in God and country is not possible. I'm Glenn Pav of the Conservative Talk Network. With integrity, let's keep righting the right.
They're here. They just came out. The latest 2011 Today in America series of free consumer protection guides. Call 1-800-819-6545. Free from the Center for Sound Consumer Advice, where since 2004 there have never been or ever will be a fee or charge of any kind to consumers. Free guides available for those purchasing homes, for those refinancing mortgages, who would want to look out for and avoid latest scams, the best plans available, those kinds of things. For those 62 and older, there's a free guide on reverse mortgages, a plan backed by our government for senior citizens, 62 and older, and a free guide focusing on purchasing and refinancing mortgages, and for those who would like to increase their credit scores 100 to 200 points. There's even a free consumer protection guide on credit restoration and rebuilding. Consumers, learn before you leap. Gain knowledge, become aware, and protect yourself and family. Since 2004, the Center for Sound Consumer Advice has provided to anyone that asks free consumer protection guides for as long as they last. Get yours today free by calling 1-800-819-6545. That's 1-800-819-6545. 1-800-819-6545.
And we're back on the Dr. Rich Show. I'm Johnny Jackson. You can find us online at drrichshow.com. That's drrichshow.com. The quote of the day comes from our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. And he said, government should uphold and not undermine those institutions which are custodians of the very values upon which civilization is founded: religion, education, and above all, family. Well, religion, education, and family. What a difference from the president of today. It's almost as if Ronald Reagan were speaking about what is happening today. Perhaps Ronald Reagan had access to today's news yesterday. Well, are you ready for tomorrow's news today? Joining me now for tomorrow's news today is veteran broadcaster and political expert Greg Allen. Greg, welcome to the show.
Well, it's nice to be on again. This is becoming something of a regular event.
Yes.
There's something going on right now I would like to give a blatant capitalist plug for, because these people are doing the right thing for the right reasons. Folks, if you have a moment today, please go to ourmarchtotampa.com. The Special Operations Warriors are putting together, their foundation's putting together a scholarship fund. They're walking all the way from Hurlburt Field, which is up near Fort Walton Beach, down to Tampa, where they'll be this coming Saturday, to raise money so that they can have their children, the children of these fallen soldiers, if you will, the Special Operations personnel, their kids can attend college. And this also honors the memory of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. So if we can do anything to help these people, and I'm looking, the route they're taking is the route I used to take when I commuted basically from Pinellas County all the way up to Fort Walton Beach many, many years ago when I was working a radio market up there. So God bless them for doing this. And I really think if we can help, let's. And again, that's ourmarchtotampa.com. It's to raise money for the fallen so that their children can get an education post-high school.
Ourmarchtotampa.com, and it honors our fallen Special Operations Warriors, and it's going to raise money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. And in fact, Greg, it's 16 Air Commandos that are marching from Hurlbut Field, Florida to Tampa, Florida, right?
Absolutely, and I know the route they're taking very, very well. And if it was a different kind of march, I could have told them where to get the best all-you-can-eat catfish imaginable. But that's another story for another time.
Well, let's talk about Pakistan and China. What's going on with Pakistan?
Oh, something fascinating is going on between Pakistan and China, and this is part of a bigger picture that I've been talking about for years and concerned about for years, in that the jihadists and the communists have something in common. They both hate us. And there's a region of Pakistan known as the northern areas. It's been a battle site, like much of that part of the world, for years and years and years, and many different empires have ruled it and lost it over the years. But what's going on now is that Pakistan is talking to China very quietly about China getting the opportunity to use this land, if you will, militarily, because many in Pakistan have a bug up their you-know-what when it comes to the United States. Mm-hmm. So this is something worth watching to see if this becomes a stronger tie, because every indication is that Pakistan and China are getting closer and closer together. And we certainly see in Syria the Chinese connection, because the Russians and the Chinese have invested so much in Syria, they don't want to see their money go to waste if a more reasonable government comes in.
Well, Greg, I was going to say, the enemy of my enemy is our friend almost. And so you have these jihadists and communists, but they both, communists of China, jihadists of Pakistan, they both are enemies of the republic that is known as America and the Western ideal. So they are joining up, if you will, I guess. Pakistan's leasing this land to China.
That's what it looks like. There are negotiations going on now. It's getting virtually no attention. It should, because it could become part of what might become World War III if things don't go right in the Middle East. Because if there's anywhere where World War III could start, it will be in the Middle East. There's no doubt about that. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, they're starting to build up a major nuclear submarine expansion, if you will. They claim it's just to counterattack, if you will, it's a counter rather, to India. And ironically, India is getting their subs from Russia. So this whole thing is getting more and more bizarre. But if we think of the Pakistanis with nuclear subs that can fire nuclear missiles, and we see the Indians doing the same thing. We know what Iran is all about. Saudi Arabia is going to want to get into it at some point. And we've got so many religious fanatics.
What about Egypt? What does Egypt have?
What's going to go on in Egypt? It doesn't look like a spring occurred, does it?
No. Well, a spring did occur, but it's called the Muslim Brotherhood Spring.
The Muslim Brotherhood was tied, and in fact, the Nazi Party owes a lot to the Muslim Brotherhood. If you look at the timeline between the two, the Muslim Brotherhood goes back a long, long way, and I just find it remarkable that so many people in the Middle East, rather than living like the Israelis, a group of people that promote family and IQ and accomplishing things academically and intellectually, would rather just blow up the world. I think an awful lot of people in the Muslim world who are decent Muslims, who are not besmirching their religion, it's time for them to speak up, especially in this country as well. I think that American Muslims, or for the most part decent people, have to be more than just decent people at this time. They've got to have the nerve, the verve, and the spine to speak up, because if they don't, they're no different from the Germans who were all too quiet in 1939.
Well, the problem is that it's just impossible to speak up without being beheaded.
Well, that is part of the problem, too. We don't hear too many things about Lutherans beheading Baptists, do we?
No, we do not. Well, let's talk about this presidential primary race. Obviously, we're in a lull right now. There's no primaries going on, but Rick Santorum, in recent polls, has pulled even with Mitt Romney. Is that the new two-man race? Is Rick Santorum right?
I believe that it's going in that direction. And you want to know something? Rick Santorum kind of reminds me of the girl you knew in high school who may not have been the prettiest girl in class, but the more you got to know her and the more you hung out with her, the more you liked her, and all of a sudden she was prettier. And when she just changed her hairstyle a little bit, she was even prettier. And before you know it, you were truly smitten. He kind of reminds me of that in a sense, sort of that he grows on you and with time becomes a stronger and stronger candidate. And I think one of the things that proves he's a stronger and stronger candidate is that the liberals are going to try to emasculate him, and Romney's going to try to besmirch him. And it's, they only do that to those they fear.
Yeah, absolutely. It's time for the long knives to come out for Rick Santorum. We'll see it all over the place. The media is going to get all over it. Speaking of the media, Fox News is reporting that Media Matters head, the leader of the Media Matters, is coordinating with the White House at the same time that he's building a super PAC that President Obama once denounced and said they would never use a super PAC. Of course, he also said he wouldn't use matching funds, but now he's using a super PAC, and the leader of Media Matters is now building this super PAC, and that's David Brock.
And we should point out, isn't David Brock the former Republican?
I'm not sure. He may be a former Republican, but now he's all over Barack Obama.
One was a Republican, came out of the closet, and then became a Democrat. If I'm thinking of the same David Brock, forgive me if my memory's faulty there. I did not look this up, but I think he's one and the same.
Media Matters is going to spend about $20 million this year in the campaign to influence news coverage that sheds a positive image on the current administration, as well as progressives and lawmakers in Congress.
Now aren't you accusing the media of not being reporters but being publicists?
Oh, that's exactly what I'm accusing them of. In fact, An ex-employee of Media Matters said that he was referring to MSNBC. He said they basically wrote their scripts for their evening newscasts.
Well, they use the same phrases. There's a lot of giveaways. And I think there's some things Republicans have to do when they're on any of the shows like Meet the Press, anything on NBC, MSNBC, ABC, CBS. And it goes as follows, basically. I think the moderator or interviewer of these shows should be asked what party he or she is aligned with. I think they should be asked, have you ever voted for a Republican? Do you ever put any spotlight on President Obama's friends like Tony Resco, who's in jail.
Reverend Wright,
yeah. Who's a racial and a religious bigot. Bel-Air's a mad bomber. Do you ever ask any questions of Democrats? And I think it's very, what about Warren Buffett with all the ways he's benefiting tax-wise because of his connection to this administration and how he's benefiting, obviously, by killing the XL project expansion. His trains, his tanker cars, are going to be filled with the petroleum that would have been in the XL pipeline. So no wonder Obama loves him and he loves Obama. What we have to do, and I'm very, very serious when I say this, the Republicans and the conservatives have to quit being polite. We have to quit trying to be nice to the media. And the next time someone from CNN or MSNBC asks a question they never ask of a Democrat, hit them hard, ask them who they vote for, and in fact, I think it would make sense, too, to look up whenever possible how many of these people are, in fact, do they vote in the first place, and if so, do they have any party alignment? Because I can remember a few years back, I looked this up, and somewhere between, and don't quote me because I'm only going from memory here, but it was somewhere between 70 and 90% of those we could find out about when it comes to their political persuasion were, in fact, Democrats. So how is a conservative or a Republican going to get a fair shake? You know, when Bush was in power, I saw a news item on NBC News, mainstream news, 3 or 4 days ago. They were just talking about the price of gasoline, and they were just complaining about, oh, isn't this awful? And they interviewed a few people, and they were complaining about it too. And not once did they mention this administration and its policies for our gas prices going up. Every time gas went up a penny under George Bush, the only thing you ever heard was, he's an oil man, Halliburton. That's all you ever heard. They blamed everything on the administration, yet they didn't even mention in the reporting any of the administration's policies affecting our gas prices. They are, in fact, publicists. Do not consider mainstream media to be news people. They're no longer that. They are blatant publicists, apologists, if you will, and they're the useful idiots for this administration.
Well, I've seen it over and over again. You know, just last week we had this thing with Kathleen Sebelius and the Health and Human Services, and all of a sudden you start seeing news stories about how, once again, about the Catholic priests and the sexual innuendo there. And you start seeing stories about abortions are down. Coming up, Obamacare is going to have a severe impact on the salaries and wages and revenues of medical doctors. So now I've seen some stories about how doctors are liars and they're just pill pushers and they may be lying to you, so trying to paint doctors in a bad light. This mainstream media has got an agenda before they write the story, and then they pick the story, they pick the survey, they pick the ideas that they want to further that agenda, and that's what's going on NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN. All of them have this going on, and it's got to stop. I don't know how we stop it. What's the best way that we can stop that, Greg?
Well, the best way in the short term is to ask the questions I mentioned a little bit earlier in our chat, and that is ask the moderator at Meet the Press, are you registered as a Republican or a Democrat? Have you ever voted for a Republican? Ask him what he thinks about Tony Resco being in jail. Ask him about Bel-Air's on video, on audio, admitting that, yes, Barack Obama kicked off his first fundraiser in Bel-Air's living room. Barack Obama lied about that as well. And here's the bottom line. Barack Obama and anyone who thinks otherwise is a fool. And basically we are becoming a nation of producers versus parasites. And the parasites go across all racial spectrum. They go across all geographic locations. I don't want anyone thinking it's only one kind of person here. We're talking about people, producers versus parasites, whether it's the barrio of East L.A., whether it's the holler of West Virginia, whether it's the ghetto of Harlem, this mentality of people who don't like to work, who want to live off the government, meaning live off the people who actually work and pay taxes, there's something very, very wrong about all of this. And one of these days, the people who plant the apple trees and maintain the apple trees, there won't be enough apples or trees to give to the people who get the government apples.
I agree. And you mentioned the moderator of Meet the Press, and that's David Gregory. And I thought it was funny. I saw a YouTube video, and it was Newt Gingrich, and he basically told David Gregory, he said, you just gave all of the talking points of the Obama administration.
Yeah.
And it was, it just laid him bare. That's the transparency of it. That basically, when you go as a conservative, when you go on Meet the Press, you are going to face the Obama administration. Under
first
the
of all,
mask.
the closest thing they have to a conservative is usually David Brooks, who every conservative knows isn't a conservative.
And Joe Scarborough, I'll tell you one thing, he is nowhere near a conservative either.
I like to know how he can stay on the air, considering the murder that occurred in his office in Fort Walton Beach of one of his interns, and the rumor that was rampant when I was working in the Fort Walton Beach market, that he had to basically leave office because he was, shall we say, being too friendly with an underage babysitter. I'd like to know how this guy's gotten away with those two things on his record and why he's not being investigated more. And I suggest the reason that's happened is because he's allowed himself to be compromised by the liberals so he can keep a paycheck. I think people should investigate Joe Scarborough, find out more about the death of his intern in his Fort Walton Beach office, find out if, in fact, that rumor that was rampant when I was working up in that market is true, because almost everybody I know up there in the Democratic Party, let alone the local Republican Party, said it was true.
Well, Greg, the bottom line is we have to stop being polite. Is that what you're saying?
We have to brass-knuckle this election or we're going to lose America. And if Barack Obama wins the presidency, we better control the Senate and the House, because this guy is going to try to make us into a socialist nation where we basically, look, there's something I'm investigating right now because I don't know if it's true, but it's scary as heck if it is, that he may want to remove the tax exemption for municipal bonds so that you don't get any tax favoritism, if you will. If you do the investing in your local community and you buy some bonds, he wants to tax you on it. I'm not sure if what I was told is accurate. Therefore, it needs further investigation on my part.
Let's talk about it next week. And I want to thank you, Greg, for sitting in with us for tomorrow's news today. You can find more stories from Greg at newmediajournal.us. Greg, thanks a lot.
You got it. Bye-bye.
All right. And if you haven't been to the Dr. Rich Show website, make it a point to go today. That's drrichshow.com. Join us tomorrow for Tom Trento. He's the president of the United West, and he will join us to tell us about his recent trip to Israel. And Thursday, we will be joined by a 25-year veteran of the Israel Defense Force Military Intelligence, Mordecai Kedar. So please tune in to the Dr. Rich Show tomorrow and every weekday, Monday through Friday, at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for your recommended daily dose of truth, justice, and the American way. For Dr. Rich, Glenn Pav, and the Conservative Talk Network, I'm Johnny Jackson, reminding you to stand up, speak out, and take action.